I would venture a guess that the standard match will be finishing last.
Yeah. It's another deck on Jim's side with main deck Lyra Dawnbringers, but Max was able to deal with that last time.
Right. Yeah, Experimental Frenzy going to be the most important card in that matchup.
All right. So, a Ponder into a Lotus Petal for Jim. We go over to Clay's side.
Looks like Clay kept one that was pretty heavy on lands. He had 2 duels and a fetch and drew a 3rd duel there, which is way too many lands for a Delver deck. Brainstorm can combine with that fetch land to clean it up in short order, though Todd is threatening to start comboing as early as turn 2.
Yeah, I almost feel like I can't Brainstorm. Clay does have a Brainstorm. He has a Daze as well. Looks like he'll just lead off on the Volcanic and see where things go.
Right. You ideally want to wait until your second turn to cast the Brainstorm and shuffle on the same turn. That way you get rid of 2 of the lands instead of just 1.
Yeah. Brainstorm from Todd. Daze here from Clay could force it to trade with Lotus Petal, but he's going to go ahead and just let that happen.
Right. If you want that exchange, you're going to get it sooner or later.
Omniscience Cunning Wish fetch land for Todd. Looks like he has the card Sneak Attack in his hand as the payoff, and an Ancient Tomb and an Emrakul. So I think we're setting up for turn 3, having 5 mana for Sneak Attack with the mana to activate.
You can set up for next turn to cast Sneak Attack with Force of Will backup and an extra mana to pay for a Daze.
In the dark, do you feel like that's enough to beat most Delver hands?
I think that it is, and certainly enough to try, and I also think that on average it gets worse for you over time.
Okay.
It is true that Spell Pierce Daze, those can get worse. The thing about it, though, is Spicklemire has a high volume of that. Wasteland serves as additional copies of the Spell Pierce effects. And also Anderson's deck is gummed up by a lot of Gristlebrand's, Emrakul's, actually totally blank draws.
Sure. I do like, because the hand has just natural sources of mana, in the case that Clay does have counterspells, Todd doesn't actually lose all his material. He could, in theory, set up again.
Yeah, he's using Ancient Tomb instead of something like a Dark Ritual, you mean?
Yeah, he doesn't have to crack the petal until he sees the Daze.
Right. Right, and Todd is not going to shove here. He's going to wait a little bit longer.
Okay.
You still don't know to a certainty what kind of deck Spicklemire is playing.
Yeah, well, Todd does have a Cunning Wish in his hand. So as far as what he's waiting for, let's look in the sideboard. He can improve his hand if he's willing to wait a turn.
There's a few things that you can grab with the Cunning Wish. You can have Flusterstorm backup. That one's pretty good. His hand's already made, so I wouldn't expect anything like reaching for Intuition. But the Through the Breach and the Flusterstorm on the sideboard could be quite powerful.
Yeah, are you more likely to go for another payoff like Through the Breach here, or you think you just want to counterspell a Flusterstorm?
Given that he passed on the window to just have 1 mana up for Daze, it feels like he's reaching for Flusterstorm. That does kind of 2 things. When you make another land drop, you can both pay for Daze and then cast Flusterstorm, or just start by paying for a Spell Pierce. So your position gets better in that way.
Ponder here from Clay. And he will waste the Ancient Tomb. And that certainly was something that was a danger for Todd's setup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Wastelands are kind of the reason why on the Sneak and Show side you generally want to be pretty aggressive with your combo.
Yeah.
As I was saying, things generally do get worse for you over time.
Now here's Cunning Wish from Todd, and because it's on Clay's turn, it's going to make it real hard for Clay to fight over this card.
Right. And you can't do it with just a Spell Pierce. You trade with the Lotus Petal, but that's not a really enticing exchange. If he had 2 mana, then he could do something like Spell Pierce plus Stifle.
Yeah, it looks like he has Spell Pierce and, I believe, and Stifle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, just can't quite leverage here.
Yeah.
It is an interesting question if Todd cracks this Flooded Strand, whether or not Spicklemire fires off the Stifle.
With Ancient Tomb leaving, I feel like we're off Through the Breach at this point.
Right. Yeah, the Flusterstorm is looking more attractive now.
Well, there's also, Ryan, a Trick Bind in Todd's board. if he, I was going to say he could get that and try to trick bind the ancient, the wasteland. That's probably too cute.
Right.
He went for Flusterstorm.
Stifle's on a downswing. That kind of play would play right into a Stifle. Todd would just be so far behind if he grabbed the trick bind and tried to crack the Flooded Strand.
Upkeep, Todd's going to crack a fetch land to see whether Clay responds. I guess if he wanted to make that play, he probably would crack the fetch land first to see if the Stifle was there.
Yeah, especially just because you have to show the Cunning Wish card.
Yeah.
It makes it really easy for Clay to just fire off the Stifle.
Clay's going to decline on the Stifle, decide Spell Pierce is more important with that mana.
Right, and on this turn, the Spell Pierce will cover most things, and then Spell Pierce plus Daze will force some additional action from Anderson. So you do know that Flusterstorm is available.
Another Ancient Tomb from Todd. So back up that mana advantage. Here's 4, and now he's going to jam. Here is Sneak Attack. It looks like he has Force, Flusterstorm, and blue card to back this up, and he has the Emrakul. I like his odds.
Right. Spicklemire needs more than just Spell Pierce Daze to beat that.
Well, we'll start with Spell Pierce. In Todd's spot, we'll see if he leads on the Force or the Flusterstorm. I'm not sure how much it matters.
It doesn't make a huge difference because Spicklemire doesn't have any blue mana available. Spicklemire made this play knowing about Flusterstorm as well.
Well, Force plus blue card will counter. And now Clay knows that Todd's hand is Flusterstorm and a mystery card. And mystery card's probably some sort of creature.
Right. Something that's good with Sneak Attack.
Clay is going to Daze. Todd will pay. Now does Clay have a Force of Will? He does not. Sneak Attack resolves. Back over to Spicklemire we go.
Spicklemire had another Wasteland. He could kind of tread water by wasting one of the red sources and then stifling the Sneak Attack, but that's just a turn. You know, Anderson's at 13, and Spicklemire has no threat.
Well, you could stifle the Annihilator trigger and then just take 15.
Yeah.
That's not even terrible. Well, right, that's not even terrible here. Well, here comes Emrakul. And Clay actually just picks up the cards.
It's like kind of terrible, right? He loses both his lands and his... Well, he takes 15, and then he gets to start chipping in with the Angler.
Yeah, sometimes I know sometimes we've seen Sneak Attack players where all they have is Emrakul and nothing, and they 15 you, and then they take like 5 turns to kill you.
Yeah, it can happen.
Not going to work here. Clay down a game. Todd Anderson takes game 1.
Yeah, if that was Stifle, and I thought it was, perhaps a slightly early concession at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I think Todd's other draw was...
oh, hold on. We still know about Flusterstorm.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
so that's a non-starter, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Now some help. Max McVety continuing to crush with this mono red deck. He takes game 1 over Jim Davis. And
that was a quick one.
Yeah. So let's look at the sideboards. On Todd Anderson's side, I want to start on the combo deck. We have seen, I know in Bob Huang winning one of our team weapons on the Legacy seat, Arcane Artisan out of the sideboard. Todd's not actually a big fan of that one. He's going for a more classical sideboard with Sneak and Show. A lot of this is devoted to his Wish board because he has Cunning Wishes in the deck.
Right.
But the real cards, the non-Wish board cards, we have Boseiju, we have Pyroclasm, and really, are any of these other cards in consideration to board in?
I think it's reasonable to reach for the permissive elements and just put them in your main deck, though you don't want to mess with your deck too much. I think mostly it is going to be Pyroclasm and Boseiju coming in. Having the option to Cunning Wish for either Pyroblast or Flusterstorm does make the card more versatile. As you saw in Game 1, Todd did wish for Flusterstorm. So yeah, not a huge argument to bring in the other stuff. You definitely leave the Through the Breach on the sideboard. Then on Spicklemire's side, we have 2 Abrade, 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Pyroblast, 2 Surgical Extraction, a Diabolic Edict, a Price of Progress, a Lily on the Last Hope, Electrickery, Snapcaster Mage, Grim Lavamancer, and Umezawa's Jite. This is more stuff that's good sometimes. Pyroblast is good against Show and Tell. Flusterstorm is good against Show and Tell. There's no additional answers to Sneak Attack available. The one thing you can technically count Diabolic Edict, which is probably good enough to bring in.
When they Sneak Attack an Emrakul, sometimes you get them.
Right, and theoretically you can beat a Shonen Gristlebrand, though that involves Todd getting pretty unlucky otherwise.
Yeah, Surgical Extraction. Todd is playing a combo deck. Clay has a little bit of discard. Is that enough?
If he had Thoughtseize instead of Inquisition, I'd be more inclined.
Sure. Okay, because then we could get sneak attacks.
You can get Gristlebrand.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's a pretty big difference maker. Surgical is fine. He has like a Dismember main deck, 4 Lightning Bolts, the Bitter Blossoms. He has a good number of cards to bring out anyway. So once you're bringing out a lot of cards, Surgical gets more attractive. That much is true.
So new in the last month at StarCityGames.com is the Versus Live series. This is your Versus videos that you've seen on our articles on StarCityGames.com. But rather than being pre-recorded, they are happening in real time. It's every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can count them, see some of the top players here on the tour showcase the top matchups of the format.
Yeah, they've been going on for a couple weeks now. Todd Anderson has been playing on them. It's been a great early look at the new standard format. They've also been covering Modern and Legacy leading up to this tournament. It's a really good show.
Yeah, it's on this very Twitch channel, so twitch.tv/SCGTour.
But you're already subscribed. You all knew that.
Yeah, you get the emails. You already know when this is going live.
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, in the middle seat, we're still in game 1 here of Jeskai versus Dredge. We saw one of these earlier. Our Colonnade player had no copies of Settle the Wreckage. Looks like Elenbogen's the same way. Was Settle the Wreckage just a 1-week trend?
It lasted a couple weeks, but
yeah, it's gone out of fashion.
I think a big reason you're seeing that is these decks have started playing the full 4 copies of Terminus.
Everyone knows you can't play Settle the Wreckage after Labor Day.
It was just a phase, man.
It's embarrassing.
We all outgrew it.
Once spring comes around, you can play Settle the Wreckage again.
Listen,
but really,
I registered Settle the Wreckage for 1 tournament, and I'm never going to hear the end of it.
You played that? What did you register it for?
I just don't feel like you understand humor. I just don't know if you have the capacity for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm learning.
We're going to get through this. Probably won't see any Settle Wreckage in the Legacy format anytime soon.
Have we seen any out of Miracles? Have they touched that card at all?
I don't think so.
Can't imagine.
That's hard to justify, especially when Supreme Verdict pitches the Force of Will. You have Brainstorm for your Terminus.
And probably not. 6-card hand for Todd. Todd, fetch land and Lotus Petal. Looks like those guys are going to resolve, and Clay's going to crack a fetch here. When there's a good red deck, it's a good time to have Max McVety be your teammates. 2-0, he's the winner on the standard table over Jim Davis.
All right, it was not the longest match. Quite the opposite.
Well, that depends on who was winning it, right?
That's true. There's certainly opportunities for McVety to just run away with that one.
So now he's going to need to look toward Clay Spicklemire or Andrew Elenbogen to get that second win.
That's a little bit of what's going on with Standard. Largely this mono-red deck, it was a known quantity. It's kind of been all over Magic Online. And then the decks that try to beat it are pretty soft to Azorius control. But Azorius control is going to have some problems with the red deck.
I feel like that's happened last Standard season. We started out, there was this red deck, and then people played anti-red. And then they realized there was no anti-red. And then they all played the red deck. And then we had a lot of red decks.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, we might be headed down that path again? Or this one's more beatable?
I just don't know.
It looked good.
Runaway Steamkin and Experimental Frenzy are 2 very unique, very powerful cards. So it's unclear how the format adapts from here.
Show and tell here from Todd. Clay missed the second land, and Todd's just going to go straight for this.
Clay has Force of Will blue card, but the blue card is his Daze. So
it's a true name.
There's a true name. All right.
All right.
That one looked like different.
So Flusterstorm going to counter the Force of Will, and there's Daze.
All right, he gets through this turn.
He also has Diabolic Edict in hand. You know, maybe Todd was going to show and tell in a Nemricool, and it would have been fine. Just Edict it.
It looks like he was going to show an Omniscience.
Yeah, that would have been bad. Here's a Bonder. Top 3 cards we see Pyroblast, Gristlebrand, and a blue card. Todd decides to keep them. He does not have another shuffle yet. Maybe that blue card's a shuffle. Or maybe he wants Gristlebrand. And Clay has nothing going on right now. Todd has a Ponder. I was interested whether he was going to cast it because he likes his next card.
He's looking for one of his payoff spells.
Yeah.
He has stuff to cheat in, but no cheat codes.
Draws Brainstorm. Now draws a Gristlebrand. There's a fetch land under the Gristlebrand. So Todd's Brainstorm is green lit here.
Yeah, with Clay stumbling, Todd should have a little bit of time, but once Clay starts making a second land drop, then things get a little more scary. Todd can afford to be pretty aggressive with these cantrips.
We have fetch land, sneak attack drawn off the Brainstorm. That's going to work out for Todd. Here's a fetch land. He's got a Lotus Petal.
And I think because he has Pyroblast in hand already, that's why he really wanted to aggressively dig to get the combo online, while Clay only had 1 mana available.
What was he waiting for that turn? He had enough mana to go for it.
I mean, it could have been something. He gets Spell Pierce plus something. Just has a little bit more mana to play with on this turn.
Game 1 was taken by Andrew Elenbogen on the Modern table, a result that may play a big role here as Todd Anderson looks to be cruising toward a Game 2 win.
I think on the previous turn, if Todd had to fight over Spell Pierce with Pyroblast and then there was just a Daze, then it was kind of all for nothing and shoving for no reason.
Okay.
So he's better set up on this turn here.
Yeah, now a lot of mana. This could be a good one. Here's Petal. Here's Sneak Attack. That last card is a Gristlebrand. Todd's only he had to actually, because of that Ancient Tomb, go to exactly 14, so he only gets 7 cards.
Mm-hmm. If there's an Emrakul in them, though, it's game over.
Yeah, here's Gristlebrand. Todd goes to 7 to draw 7. There's an Emrakul, so
right.
is it game over?
A Lotus Petal showing that Emrakul. Nothing Clay can do
go.
about that.
Clay puts down the cards, and there's a handshake. Todd Anderson, 2-0 winner on the Legacy table. So last round, Andrew Elenbogen was saved by his teammates. This round, he's going to have to do some saving, but he's up a game on Ross Merriam.
Yep. Let's see, for Elenbogen, we did cover a similar matchup early in the tournament. We had a Dredge deck squaring off against an Azorius control deck that did not feature Sideboard Graveyard Hate. You don't expect that from Jeskai, so Elenbogen will also not be bringing in any Rest in Peace. He's mostly fighting through these 4 main deck Terminus, though. That is a big deal.
So we get to catch on its entirety. Ross Merriam is going to be on the play here in the second game. I'm looking at Andrew's sideboard for Graveyard Hate, and I'm coming up empty.
Yeah, he's largely looking at his main deck. He got the job done in the first game. Miriam's going to be presumably bringing in some kind of answers to... Well, yes, there's no Rest in Peace, so it is Jeskai. You don't expect it. He's going to have to just be more cautious about Terminus, I guess, is all the more he can do.
What I am interested on Andrew's sideboard is he's making some pretty big statements about the format. So you'll oftentimes in this control deck see a lot of 2s and 1s. Andrew has 3 copies of Ancestral Vision and 3 copies of Stony Silence in his sideboard. If you're a deck that's Jeskai, which already has like a lot of good main deck game, against a deck like Affinity, that then on top of that put in 3 Stonies, to me is really saying something.
Yeah, that's going to be largely for... It does enough against the Tron matchup, which is quite bad. And Ironworks is a worse matchup than Affinity by a fair margin.
Yeah.
It's also true that recently Hardened Scales Affinity has been picking up traction, which is a tougher matchup than Traditional Affinity by a lot. Traditional Affinity for Jeskai is a very easy matchup, whereas Hardened Scales actually has quite a bit of staying power as the game goes along, and it's driven just by activated abilities.
Hardened Scales actually has compared to Traditional Affinity, while Stony's great against both of them, Hardened Scales has an even tougher time winning through Stony Silence.
Right. Yeah, you don't get those Signal Pest games where sometimes you can squeak one out that way.
Yeah, like Signal Pest, Master of Ethereum, Shrug, we got there.
Right.
They don't do that.
You're casting 2-mana 1/1s. That's what the Hardened Scales deck does when it's not online.
Yeah. I would want to say 2-mana 2/2s, but you don't generally get the enchantment down because you can't even make green mana.
They play a lot of forests.
All hands are on deck for this one. Looks like Elenbogen on a mulligan.
Kind of funny. Jeskai Control is a deck that largely keeps lands and spells hands. I mean, your spells are largely all interchangeable. You can get stuck with too many too expensive cards. But in this matchup, the most important thing is that Terminus is on top of your deck.
Yeah.
You don't have too much control over that. You have more than you have historically in Modern. Of course, Jace the Mind Sculptor being added relatively recently.
I think it's interesting that there's no Serum Visions in the deck, even though it's a 4-Terminus deck now. They've gone for Opt instead.
Yeah, I mean, Opt just draws a card on your opponent's turn. That just matters more. It also just plays a lot better with Snapcaster Mage. I remember when Opt was spoiled Ixalan. That's when we first got it back.
Yep.
I was extremely excited because I had the conversation before. There's some people that seem to believe that Preordain's fine for Modern. It's absolutely not. It's clearly way too good. And anytime that conversation came up before, I'd say, well, they could maybe give us Opt, but I think it might be too good.
That was like the time where blue-red decks were playing sometimes one of Peak. And in that situation, you'd think, Opt's probably better there.
Yeah. And now that we've gotten Opt, my initial read was like, it might be weird, but I feel like this is just better than the Serum Visions in a lot of spots. And you're seeing that start to happen in a lot of deck lists.
Shriekhorn from Ross is going to mill him into a Stinkweed Imp for the first turn. Andrew is on a 6-card hand. And also interesting, it's not a consensus on the Opt versus Serum Visions. You have decks that play both.
Yep.
Storm does not play Opt. Ross tried to mill to get that Amalgam trigger. You milled 5, got an Amalgam, but did not get a creature. The Shriekhorn's going to fail on that check.
Yeah, hit a lot of lands so far off the self-mill, but I imagine he'll have more opportunities.
Right.
Even something as simple as casting Life from the Loam on this turn is gaining pretty reasonable traction for the Dredge deck.
At the very worst, Cathartic Reunion would be the best. He could even just flashback this Conflagrate and discard some things. That's what he's going to do.
Yeah. Get that Imp back in the graveyard.
Yeah, and a prized Amalgam into the yard. He will deal 2 to Andrew.
Right. If the card literally just said discard 2 cards, he would sign up for it.
Very honest Magic.
Right.
How?
Honest.
This card, you have to discard your cards to play this. Okay. What do I get? Nothing. Sign me up.
Right. That's exactly what I wanted.
Upkeep. The Shriekhorn will be expended for 2 more lands on Ross's side. Now, fortunately, those are his first 2 real lands he milled, so there was a danger with all these lands he's hitting that he would actually start to lose the ability to fetch. I don't think that's happened. Mills 5, and he's going to get a Life from the Loam and a Bloodghast. So if he has the land, he can trigger everything. And it looks like he does not. Andrew passes. Ross will dredge Life from the Loam. Here's 3. Stinkweed Imp, prized Amalgam. Okay, if this resolves, this is pretty big.
Yeah, you got to fight over this one if you have something.
Yeah, and Andrew will. He'll Logic Knot it for 1. He has to.
And the tough thing is you just have to keep fighting over it.
Every turn. Right.
Yep.
And this is where you'd wish in an Andrew spot that he had a Rest in Peace, so then he could stop fighting. But
right.
Yeah, Ross will just jam Loam every turn. And at this point, we're at 3 prized Amalgams.
Yeah, he's been really juicing up his graveyard. Elenbogen does have 1 sideboard Surgical Extraction.
That'd be huge. There's also the potential that Ross will eventually mill a Narc Amoeba, and then it just won't matter.
Right, yeah, that just grabs the Amalgams for free.
Now, Andrew does have 2 copies of Vendilion Click in his sideboard, and a copy of Spell Queller. They could all play very nicely here. But he'll go for Search for Azcanta, and that's a green light.
And no 4th land there for Elenbogen.
And Loam for Ross Merriam. Gets back 3 lands.
Be a good spot for a Spell Snare.
Is there ever not a good spot for Spell Snare?
I don't think you can make that card bad. Elenbogen not playing any copies.
Ross will shock to 15. He gets back Bloodghast. He will cast Thoughtseize, go to 13. And this is pretty big. Gets a look at Andrew's hand. Triggers those prized amalgams. Andrew will path to exile the Bloodghast. Ross has another mountain perhaps in the deck. I believe so. You see Cryptic Command, Snapcaster Mage, Logic Knot.
Yeah, Elenbogen really hurting for missing that 4th land drop.
Yeah, Cryptic Commands can buy him some turns against these prized amalgams.
Right. Still in a position where finding Terminus on the top of his deck is a big deal.
Absolutely. But at this point, I guess Search for Azcanta helps him, increases his chances of doing that.
Right. This hand is kind of Thoughtseize proof. I think the only card you really don't want to take is the Logic Knot.
Yeah.
Second Cryptic Command versus Snapcaster Mage is not the most interesting decision. The Snapcaster Mage is more flexible. Like, you know what the Cryptic Command is going to do mostly.
And that's what Ross decides to take. So now Andrew really just needs that 4th untapped land. Search for Azcanta trigger. If it's an untapped land, I assume he's going to take it here.
Yeah, just starting to cast Cryptic Command would buy him time, and then inevitably he can set up for a Terminus. It's hard to pass on one. And
that's what he'll do. I think the tank on it is that he really needs to find Terminus, and, you know, there's a chance he mills this and the next land is also untapped, in which case he really wishes he'd have milled it.
Right. He's not thrilled that he had a shock for it. It's another part of the equation.
Yeah. A Dredge of Life from the Loam. Narcomoeba. And another Loam put into the yard. So Narcomoeba's into play. He can go to attack, so I'm going to start Andrew on the Cryptic Command train. But Ross is, despite a good draw, it actually took him a while to set this up. His dredges didn't line up correctly. I think some running Cryptics into Terminus is very possible.
Right. Yeah, those early dredges flipping over a lot of lands, missing on the land drop when he finally milled the Bloodghast, and pushing him back a turn on that was a big deal.
So goes to attack. Andrew will tap draw off his Cryptic Command. Now Ross can set up for big Conflagrates here. He's going to flash back Faithless Looting. So first we'll dredge a Stinkweed Imp.
Ooh.
Whoa, 2 Bloodghasts, 2 Narcomoebas. Now he'll dredge a Life from the Loam. That one didn't hit much of anything, but these were some pretty big hits. Now he must discard 2. Discard Stinkweed Imp and actually a land, it looks like.
Yeah, it won't be hard for him to put a bunch of lands in his hand. Inevitably.
Yeah, it gets back 2 Narcomoebas. Ross plays 3 Conflagrates total, so there's the potential that he can actually just burn Andrew out from 14. He'll cast another Loam. And restock. I believe that puts him up to 7 cards.
Now he knows about one more Cryptic Command, but once he fights through that, then Elenbogen has to find some new tools. Still a great window to find a Terminus. Haven't seen one of those yet.
Yeah, not this turn.
A 5th land would be kind of nice because it gets him a look for Terminus when he uses the Cryptic Command to tap the team.
Yeah, he's talking to his teammates right now. He has 5th land, but it's Sacred Foundry, and that's 2 more points of damage. Now, he drew Opt for the turn, so there's something to like where I think he can try to opt into the Terminus on Ross's turn, and then if he fails, he can still Cryptic, which is all of that's pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah, don't mind that.
Back to Ross we go. A Dredge of Life from the Loam.
See a Nature's Claim at the sideboards. He was paying respect to a potential rest in peace. And you notice that Ross has been playing lands but not triggering those Bloodghasts. He's well aware that Terminus is something that could be happening here.
Yes, the idea is eventually you can confligate your opponent to 5, make a land drop, and then swing for the lethal, something like that.
Right, or if these creatures connect one time, then you just have the Bloodghast at the ready. You either keep presenting them, or they get swept, and then you make the Bloodghasts.
I suppose you can also do something. If you can get Andrew to 10 and get a fetch land into play, something like that, there's some nice lines where he taps your team and then you bloodgast him.
Right. Yeah, there's a question as to how many fetchable lands are still in Ross's deck, certainly at this point.
And on Ross' side, he's going to bring the bloodghasts out of the graveyard now. The thing about Terminus is that it puts everything back on the bottom of the deck, which is not free.
Yeah, it's very easy for Ross to just shuffle his deck up. Just Life from the Loam, back a fetch land, play it, and then shuffle your creatures back into the iteration, start dredging, you can find them all again.
Do you know if someone Terminus is? What order do the cards go on the bottom?
Very full grip of lands here for Ross. Does have an Narcomoeba in hand, doesn't have to care too much about this.
Yeah.
Plenty of cards that are meaningless to discard here. It's going to be 2 lands. And Elenbogen had that opt, but didn't cast it there because you didn't have a white mana up. You'd rather be able to Terminus if you did find it. Trigger on search for Azcanta. That's going to transform into Azcanta the Sunken Rune. Didn't see what he dumped, but there was a card on top he did not want. There's another look for Terminus. That's going to be a miss.
Yeah. Anderson, he's talking to teammates right now about that opt, saying, hey, I might have a couple more chances. I mean, at this point, we're on Cryptics or Terminuses, and I don't think there's anything else. Suppose check, Andrew will cast opt. He has transformed as Azcanta. Top card. Well, we're assuming it's not a Terminus. Spies to the bottom, draws. That's a fetch land. We are in main phase, turns out, then. So Field of Ruin is what he's going to put down. His land 7. 6 up, but just 2 lands. He says go. Clock correct here. See whether or not this next swing by Ross is lethal. He dredges another Loam. There's a Conflagrate into the yard. That feels like it's going to matter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can Conflagrate. See, if you dredge life as your 8th card in hand and then you cast it, you can get up to 11.
Yeah, so if your hand is Loam.
Oh, yeah, 2 Loams. That can get you to that can make
cards.
you lethal.
Yeah. So then it goes Loam up to 10, Loam up to 12, and he's got 6 lands. Yes, it could be a 12-point burn spell.
Yeah. Oh, looks like Ross going to make an attack, paying mine to settle the wreckage.
Okay, I like that.
He does not have deck lists, so that's why you see the attack that's something other than an Alpha Strike here.
Well, this is dumb because I have a square on my board of 5 or more creatures attack at once, so we should really just put 1 more in there. Just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Come on, Ross. There's 8 creatures. You can just do slightly more than half. Just be a little more aggressive. Be a little. There we go. There we go. 5.
Boo.
5. Yeah, put him down. Put him on. No, 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 no. Boo.
Nice. Thank you,
That
Ross.
is the. Wow.
He's so smart.
That is the rudest. Fine. I hope you get a 9th creature, then we can attack with 5. Back over to Andrew's side we go.
Yeah, best he probably has is like a Path to Exile or maybe a Lightning Helix. Snapcaster Mage Path is another thing you could have.
Path, Snap Path, is that enough? He's got a Colonnade Path? Because Colonnade can block? You're just dying to Conflagrate if that happens, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't know if he has a way out of this attack plus Conflagrate.
Yeah, you're just dying to Conflagrate. All right, so he takes 8, drops to 4.
You can logic knot the Conflagrate.
Okay, that does work.
I don't know how many cards. I think he has approximately 8-ish cards in his graveyard.
I guess the worry on Ross's side is that Andrew did have enough mana to, if he had Settle plus Logic Knot, Ross would have lost to that, and that's why he didn't jam everything. You know, you could jam into Settle the Wreckage if it took Andrew off counter mana.
Right.
As Kanta from Elenbogen. Top 4, land, Terminus. There's Terminus. If he casts it, will he lose?
You would rather that have been the 5th one down. I'll tell you that. Say that much.
Well, if he can get an untapped basic, right? Well, if he's just an untapped land, he has 7 lands here. He needs enough for Terminus plus Logic Knot.
Right.
Can he do it? We'll see. Fetch land. Can it? Well, checking basics. He's got.
They're usually pretty flush with basic lands. I think 3 islands in the deck.
Yeah, he's got 5 total. That's not a problem. Andrew goes down to 3. And Ross not swinging for the fences that turn is going to make this game more difficult. Now,
yeah, the play made sense. It doesn't look like it's working out, though.
Well, I think it could still work. So here's Terminus. Here's the thing, Ryan. He puts everything on the bottom of the deck. Sure, but Ross has a fetch land. He can shuffle all these cards back in, and he got another land in his hand.
Yeah.
So he does that. He dredges 5. He dredges over any one of these Bloodghasts, and it's still hasting in for lethal.
Yeah, he gets a lot of looks at it, too.
I guess he'd need 2. Andrew is at 3, not 2, so... But, you know, there's 4 Bloodghasts in the deck.
I mean, if one's connecting this turn, it's not like Elenbogen's in a good position there.
Yeah, Ross was prepared for this. Now that deck is mighty small, and dredging 5 is, on average, going to hit more than 1 Bloodghast. Here's 5. Land, Amalgam, Narcomoeba, Bloodghast.
All right.
It's because I said that thing about average. That's why the last 2 had to be Bloodghasts.
Correct. That's how averages work.
Hastes them both into play and swings them both. And Elenbogen picks up the cards. We're going to go to game 3.
All right, 12 minutes on the clock.
Yeah.
This is going to be a tight one.
Some savvy play here by Ross. At a lot of points in that match, it looked like Ross was giving up damage because he was. Stuff like that, he had a lethal attack, which he didn't make. He continued to make plays like that. But what I think is really intelligent about it is that it shows that he knows, like, he can afford to give away that damage because he still felt confident in being able to win.
Right. And you saw him not bring back the Bloodghast in the face of a sweeper for a while. Well, then it gets to a point where his deck is so small that his dredge just reassembles his creatures very quickly.
So it's going to come down to this one for the whole match. It's probably about 10 minutes for the game. Something I like here, you see a team on the right here all piling around Ross Merriam. Clay Spicklemire is hanging out with Andrew. Looking over the hall, Max McVety's got food and is hanging out somewhere else.
Max McVety will not be able to tell you the correct play on a given turn of any match with just guy control.
Oh, he's like, I won 2-0 with red. All right, guys, see you next round. Let me know what happened.
Right.
I did it.
I don't know what your guys' decks do. Good luck. I'm rooting for you.
I'm going to get a taco.
See you at the North Market in 5.
Just hanging out.
I can make a coffee run.
Yeah. I like that, actually. I think teams don't do that enough.
That's my favorite team dynamic.
Yeah. I ran that once. We had our teammate did do that at Team Open, and he won his match and left. And then me and the other guy, we won the round, but then we thought it'd be really funny. We told them that we both lost, and we lost the round 0-2, and it took like 2 rounds before we realized it.
Oh, yeah, we dropped.
I was like, yeah, man, it sucks. He's like, oh, well, that's unfortunate. I really thought you guys were going to win that. When you left, you guys were winning. I was like, yeah, it was a rough time.
Yeah, you just got really unlucky, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I like we got paired up for the next round. He didn't realize it that one. It took the next round. He's like, why are we at such a low? Are we at the right table number? And then we're just like, oh yeah, we won that round, by the way.
I like to sit next to my teammate and just stare at their opponent. Just shoot that. Like, not even pay attention to the game. Just stare at them.
That's nice. Game 3, 7s apiece. Andrew starts out on Colonnade. Going to kind of build up with some lands. Opportunity there for search for Ascanta, nothing doing. With the fetch land, though, Logic Knot is online here. Ross doesn't care. Here's Cathartic Reunion. Is he going to hit a Logic Knot?
Yeah, the draw part is upside, though. Ross gets the minimum part he wants, gets to discard the Slight from the Loam.
No second Dredger, though, so Ross draws the other 2 cards. You know, all thinks that a pretty fair Cathartic Reunion.
Yep.
And Surgical Extraction from Andrew will take care of the prized amalgams. Let's take a look at Ross's hand. He has that Loam, he has Stinkweed Imp, he has Conflagrate, and he has 3 more lands.
Not very good holdings.
No.
He will have the option on the following turn to cast Conflagrate for 0 and then flash it back, discarding his Dredgers. That can start to get him set up. You blow one of your Conflagrates doing that, which is an issue. You can also just cast the Life from the Loam and start dredging that one.
Yeah, that part's probably fine. Ross is really hoping to do more off that Loam.
Yes. Yeah, it's only 3 looks, but they could have been a lot better than that.
Andrew land and a pass. Can leave a burn, possible Snapcaster Mage on Surgical as well. With the amalgams gone, because Andrew does have a Snapcaster, do you have in mind like what he's looking to Surgical again?
You kind of want to watch the game for a few turns. I mean, Bloodghast is one of the more threatening cards from the deck. Depending on how Conflagrate gets to the graveyard, that one can be a really good one to knock out.
That turn, Ross cast a Loam for nothing. It resolved. Now he dredges it.
This is kind of a juicy spot. I guess that Stinkweed Imp changed it.
Yeah.
If not for that Imp, there was like Loam in the graveyard plus Loam in hand, which you could have Snapcast the Surgical on.
I didn't know if it's, but whether he goes for a Dredger or a threat.
Yeah, and I don't think that there's abstractly a clear line. I think it's pretty contextual.
Here is Stinkweed Imp, just hard cast for Ross. And Spell Queller from Elenbogen. Why not? It'll take care of the 1-2, and Andrew has a clock going now.
Who's the beatdown?
Teferi's the beatdown, in the words of John Ross.
The ultimate beatdown.
Dredge for 5 from Ross Merriam.
Yeah.
Well, he can't dredge over amalgams anymore.
That's true. I'd like to start seeing some Bloodghasts. There was an Assassin's Trophy in the mix. That was a card that could have dealt with this Spell Queller, but I like this aggressive sideboard plan from Elenbogen. He wants to be able to close this game quickly.
Yeah, I wonder if he re-sideboarded quickly based on the clock here. That's something you can see someone in his situation do.
Yeah.
Loam from Ross will resolve. Can keep building up toward those lands in play. At some point, though, remember, Elenbogen can turn the corner with these Colonnades. He's got 5 mana in play and 2 Colonnades. Dredge doesn't really play removal. Ross going to fetch down to 15. We're getting very close, rather down to 13, to having something like End-Step Lightning Helix. Yeah. It's 2 swings.
Yeah, Stinkweed Imp just got hit by Pat to exile immediately. If you blinked, you missed it. And then Lightning Helix goes upstairs.
So Ross down to 10. Yeah, he fetched to, we'll confirm this, I believe he fetched to 13. We've got Lightning Helix to 10.
Love the pace of play here. Elenbogen's, I can win this match. Let's get it done.
Swings in for 2. Merriam down to 8. Elenbogen passes. He did not have land 6 for the Colonnade, but he's got another Lightning Helix at the ready. And that may be enough. If he has Helix, then untap with Snapcaster. He has Helix Snapcaster, I believe, in hand, Ryan. That plus an X Spell Queller hit is lethal.
Right. Yeah, he already has the Helix in the graveyard, so you can just Snapcaster Helix here, shove across, and then he has the Helix as well.
Yeah, he would put Ross down to 5, have 2 2-power attackers. It's unlikely Ross would have 2 ways to block.
And the way it's been going, Ross has had about nothing.
Yeah, he's going to flash back Faithless Looting, but that is fine. Andrew's not playing control anymore. He's burning.
Counter burn.
Yeah. Loam was the first dredge. Another dredge finds a Bloodghast for Ross, but Bloodghast cannot block.
It's rare that you find yourself with so many cards in hand and so powerless to impact the game.
Tons of cards in the hand for Ross. And he's got to know that he's in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
This is, you could, it's not even a conflict in the yard. Yeah, he's just going to discard to hand size? Is that right? No, he discarded the 2 loams to that first Faithless Looting. Now he's going to dredge some more. Here's 3 more off the first loam. Here's the other loam. Dredges 3 more.
Trying to find some chump blocking Narcomoebas, I suppose.
And they are nowhere to be found. And discards some 2 lands. Plays a tap land, gets back a Bloodghast, but that's going to be that leaves the door open for Elenbogen. Here's Vendilion Click. It's 5 in the air plus the Helix in Andrew's hand. He says, I'm going to Helix you, and I'm going to swing for 5. You're at 8. And Ross Merriam extends the hand. The team of Clay, Spicklemire, Elenbogen, and as somewhere Max McVety picks up the win.